Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone, episode number 447 for the 14th of May, 2017. Richard Saunders here from Sydney, Australia. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers listening today. And happy birthday for yesterday for one of our wonderful reporters, Heidi Robertson, the Raw Skeptic. And she's going to be kicking off this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone, a very telling report from Heidi. And she makes a very, very good point about those people who say, well, we don't vaccinate our kids and they're doing really well. A very telling report indeed for the Raw Skeptic this week to kick off the Skeptic Zone. After Heidi and her Raw Skeptic Report, Brew Ha Ha Science from australiascience.tv, a bit of an unusual one this week. Ben Lewis is going to be looking at leaking scientific emails. Leaking scientific emails. It's a bit odd. Stay tuned for that one. Then following that, it's an interview with Claire Klingenberg, all the way from the Czech Republic. Claire's going to be updating us on the news about the upcoming European Skeptics Congress in Poland, beautiful Poland, a bit later on this year. Find out who some of the speakers are and where it's going to be held with Claire Klingenberg all the way on the line from the Czech Republic. Then to round off the show, it's a bit of a blast from the not-too-distant past with Dr Rachie Reports. Now, way back, not too long ago, in 2010, Dr Rachie and former reporter Dr Krissy appeared on Sydney Radio, live in the studio on the Glenn Wheeler nighttime show. And Dr. Krissy and Dr. Rachie discussed the power balance band of the time, which is big news, and applied kinesiology, raining fish, mind-body wallet festivals, and UFOs. Now, it's worth pointing out that our host, and I appeared on Glenn Wheeler's show too from time to time, some years back, unfortunately, Glenn Wheeler had an accident on his, I think it was a moped or a little motorbike, where a woman who was a little bit out of it on drugs, sadly at the time, crashed into Glenn. Glenn has had a very long recovery from his injuries, and we see him appearing on TV from time to time. But what a great time we had with Glenn, and what a great bloke he still is. Glenn used to do wonderful spoof cold readings on his show, and Australians will certainly know who I'm talking about. Making a very strong recovery, but it's certainly a long road for Glenn Wheeler. But hear him from 2010 with Dr. Rachie and Dr. Krissy to round off the show. Now, in the last couple of days, this thing has invaded the Skeptic Zone office. No, it's not some sort of weird alien moth. Well, some people might recognize that sound straight away. Yes, it's a fidget spinner. Yes. And as Maynard said, after being photographed with one, the fad is over. If he's holding one, the fad must be over. I don't know what to say about fidget spinners. They are strangely addictive. It's good fun. They're okay. But we're just waiting for more woo to come out. We sort of figure someone's going to invent a new pseudoscience. Put the fidget spinner under your glass, give it a spin. Right, here we go. Off it goes. And it will energize your water with make up your own pseudoscience here. We've certainly seen examples of a lot less impressive things apparently giving their magical energies to water and other substances. So why not a fidget spinner? Oh dear, put it away. Stay over there. Even the cats like it. Henrietta and Maud, the Skeptic Zone cats, if I put a fidget spinner down on the table, it won't be long before they come over and try to stop it. And then they'll start it again. Good grief. What next? Now, on last week's episode of the Skeptic Zone, I mentioned all sorts of skeptical conventions coming up. And the one that I didn't mention was Skepticon the Australian Skeptics National Convention. In fact, this will be the 33rd National Convention for Australian Skeptics, and it's presented by Think Inc. and the Australian Skeptics, an Ideas Festival. Saturday, the 18th, and Sunday, the 19th of November at the City Recital Hall in Sydney, and that's right in the middle of the city. The website is skepticonaustralia.org.au, and the blurb says, the wait is over. Tickets are now available for Skepticon, the 2017 Australian Skeptics National Convention. The skeptical highlight of the year, our 33rd convention is being organised by Think Inc. and will be held on November the 18th and 19th, 2017 at the City Recital Hall, Angel Place, Sydney. This promises to be a great event with speakers including science media star Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki, of course, astronomer Alan Duffy, YouTube super debunker Captain Disillusion, comedian and MC Lawrence Lung, former naturopath and now critic of Alt Med Britt Hermes, doctor and TV personality Dr. Brad Mackay, award-winning documentary maker Sonia Pemberton, Walkley Award-winning journalist Kathy Marks, and Dr. Dr. Viram Sharma. More great speakers will be announced soon, as well as news of the convention dinner on the night of Saturday the 18th of November. Single day and full weekend tickets are available. skepticonaustralia.org.au. Oh yes, looking forward to that convention a bit later on in the year here in Sydney. And goodness me, there are a lot of conventions, skeptical conventions coming up. We'll be hearing from Claire soon about the one in Europe, in Poland. We've got an announcement later on in this episode about Skeptical in Berkeley in California. QED's coming up. The list just goes on. The list goes on. If you have the opportunity this year, for the rest of this year, if you're near one of these conventions, come along. We've got the Northeast Conference of Science and Skepticism in New York coming up next month, which I shall be at. All sorts of wonderful conventions. Well, now it's time for me to run downstairs and make myself a little selection of camembert, blue cheese, camembert, a bit of blue cheese, a bit of camembert, some crackers, nice big square crackers, a few roasted peanuts beside that, and a nice glass of ginger beer. That sounds okay to me. Well, I do all that and enjoy all that. I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello everyone, Heidi Robertson here from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. If you are at all familiar with the anti-vaccination movement, you would have heard some of the typical tropes that are trotted out, from "Why is my unvaccinated child a threat to your vaccinated child?" to "Vaccines are unnatural," to "Vaccines weaken the immune system," to the old tired and thoroughly debunked "Vaccines cause autism," to "Bill Gates is trying to depopulate the world through vaccination," to "How can you inject your baby with aborted fetuses and monkeys' kidneys?" I kid you not. Here in the Northern Rivers, we have another common one. Now, we live in a stunning part of the world, as I often say, with arguably the best beaches, beautiful, sprawling green countryside, gorgeous weather, and plenty of people who enjoy exercising outdoors and eating fresh produce either from their own gardens or from the myriad of roadside stalls and markets. It's a popular tourist mecca for these reasons. One would be forgiven for looking at this region and forgetting that polio, diphtheria, and measles are even a thing to be concerned about these days. And in fact, a prevailing argument from the vaccine deniers in this region is, where are all the diseased people in the Northern Rivers? I don't see anyone sick with these diseases. How can you say that the worst vaccination rates in Australia are causing danger to us when we don't see epidemics of these diseases? It is truly staggering that vaccine deniers can continue to either not see what is happening around them or to see it and yet still explain it away somehow. Just last night, I had a vaccine denier message me admitting that yes, her mother had not vaccinated her as a child and she subsequently contracted measles, mumps, chickenpox and whooping cough, but that she believed that these diseases were just rites of passage for a child. Never mind the babies and immune-suppressed people she was exposed to throughout the course of these childhood rites of passage. Never mind the people who die from these diseases. Anyway, it's easy for me to get off track. If you can detect some frustration in my voice, it's because this issue has become such an ingrained part of life now that I have to worry whenever I'm in the shopping centre with my kids and we hear someone cough. Instead of delighting in the vision of a new baby in the community, I shudder when I see newborns being passed around here at social events. Last week, it was revealed that the Northern Rivers had 37 new cases of whooping cough in just 1 week. Let me just emphasise at this point that this figure is undoubtedly just the tip of the iceberg. 37 notifications to public health does not mean that there are only 37 cases of the disease in the community in the past week. The mistrust of the medical system means that when sick, people do not seek the advice and treatment from their family general practitioner because they do not have one. They may go to their local herb shop for advice, or their naturopath, or homeopath, or even their chiropractor who acts as their primary healthcare practitioner, the vast majority of who are rabidly anti-vaccine themselves. So a reasonable scenario for the Northern Rivers. A mum or dad has a young child with a nasty, persistent cough. In they go to the local herb shop. The local doctors don't know anything, you see, so you should avoid them at all costs. Mind you, the doctors in an emergency department are okay for treating your child's broken leg or saving your life in the case of a heart attack, but other than that, they are all out to purposely maim and kill our children. So, in they go to the herb shop and they speak with a naturopath behind the counter or a herbalist or a homeopath. This salesperson may ask a few questions. Sometimes they do not even ask to see the patient, so apparently no examination is required. If an examination is performed, it may consist of pseudoscientific procedures and questions involving chakras, kinesiology, or asking if the child has suffered any recent traumas that may have caused the, quote, dis-ease, end quote. A definitive diagnosis of whooping cough is not made because they lack both the medical expertise, may deny germ theory altogether, and certainly do not take a swab and send it off to pathology. Therefore, public health never hears of these patients, and the child with whooping cough is free to run around in the community with various concoctions of herbal preparations on board which have no evidence of efficacy, are not regulated, and in many cases do not even contain the same doses of active ingredient from batch to batch. Or they get sugar water. I've done a report on whooping cough previously in episode number 335 of the Skeptic Zone, when baby Riley Hughes died from whooping cough. In it, I mentioned that the current vaccine, although not perfect, still has about an 84% efficacy after 3 doses of preventing severe disease. The vaccine we currently have is better at reducing the severity and not as good as preventing the disease itself altogether. Yes, vaccinated people can still get whooping cough. This does not equate to a vaccine failure. And vaccinated people do often in this area contract whooping cough because we literally have no herd immunity. That is, the less people vaccinated, the more chance the disease has of spreading throughout the community, which it is clearly doing here. So take the 37 cases diagnosed in the past week with a grain of salt. It would not be surprising if it were easily double that rate. But how does this compare with neighbouring districts who have better vaccination rates and the rest of the state of New South Wales as a whole? I quote from the Daily Telegraph article by Jane Hanson on the weekend, which is titled "Whooping Cough Outbreak in Anti-Vax Enclave." Quote, "The rate of whooping cough in the Northern District is 9 times that of the neighbouring Mid-North Coast Health District, which has only registered 17 cases this year. A Sunday Telegraph analysis of the local health districts reveals Northern New South Wales also had a much higher incidence of whooping cough than any other area in the state in 2016 as well. A total of 10,832 New South Wales children contracted whooping cough statewide in 2016, according to New South Wales health data. Children living in the North Coast region, which has the lowest vaccination rate in the country, suffered 4 times more whooping cough than comparable areas in 2016. End quote. And then further on in the article, quote, "The Northern New South Wales Health District registered 518 cases of whooping cough in children last year, almost 4 times the rate of the Mid-North Coast Health District, which registered only 158 cases. The two health districts have similar population numbers, but the Mid-North Coast has a higher vaccination rate and therefore better herd immunity. The Central Coast Local Health District, which boasts some of the highest immunisation rates in New South Wales, only registered 372 cases, despite a greater population than Northern New South Wales." End quote. And again further in the article, quote, "Australian Medical Association President Dr Michael Gannon said whooping cough rates in Northern New South Wales were probably much higher than recorded figures because many in the community eschew the GP in favour of alternative practitioners. He said, a lot would not get diagnosed. People should hold their breath when driving through Northern New South Wales, but it's a bit hard to hold your breath for 100 kilometres. The director of the North Coast Public Health Unit told the Sunday Telegraph that the community is at a much greater risk of outbreaks that can run out of control. Communities with low vaccination levels will have more disease, he said. 2 babies died in the region during the 2009 to 2012 outbreak of whooping cough. At 1 month old, both Dana McCaffrey and Kalis Smith were too young to be vaccinated and succumbed to the horror disease in 2009 and 2011 respectively. Tony McCaffrey has campaigned for a targeted campaign to address immunisation rates in the region since the death of her daughter, Dana. Quote, "The perfect storm when Dana died is brewing again. It's crucial pregnant women in the area get that booster shot to protect their newborns," end quote, Mrs McCaffrey said. Quote, "When Dana died, whooping cough was 4 times the rate as well. We need to explain to parents why they should vaccinate their child and educate them about the diseases that they are preventing. In many cases, there is no cure, and all that modern medicine can do is support a child through it," Mrs McCaffrey said. End quote. So, what are the anti-vax groups saying about these telling figures? So far, I've seen the following comments. Quote, "I do put the health of my children above others. When I spoke to a very pro-vaccine professor of medicine more than 20 years ago, he told me the best advice he could give was for me not to vaccinate my kids, but for everyone else to do so for the herd immunity effect." End quote. And, quote, "I have not and would not subject myself of my children to these barbaric drugs designed to cull population and weaken people's minds. Wake up and stop being sheep people. We don't need them. It's just another form of government control." End quote. And here's a perler, quote, "The Muslims are bringing the diseases back, mate, and you are falling for it." End quote. Those quotes above were all just on the Stop the AVN Facebook page under the post on this story. In an anti-vaccination group, one prominent campaigner was celebrating the return of whooping cough by posting the article alongside her comment, "We are winning." Yep, just a small sample. I cannot go to the other anti-vaccination forums to see what has been posted due to a selfish self-interest in maintaining my mental health. Some may say what's left of it. After this story broke with these statistics, we thought it would be a good time to also ask for some other statistics to be released. It would be interesting to know what the uptake is of the maternal third trimester whooping cough booster, specifically in our area, to see if it correlates at all with the increase in whooping cough outbreaks. The maternal booster has been offered to women free of charge since March or April of 2015, so it's been long enough to have seen a reduction in pertussis if enough pregnant women here were taking up the vaccination. So far, we've been told that the data is due to be released soon, so we'll keep you updated on that. We have posted the link to the full Daily Telegraph story on our Facebook page, Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters, and it has been widely shared, which we are grateful for. If any listeners would like to visit our page and give it a like or even occasionally share some of our posts, it would be much appreciated. We can also be found on Twitter at NRVaxSupporters, VAX, and at www.nrvs.info. Thank you again to Richard and all the wonderful Skeptic Zone listeners for your ongoing support and encouragement. That's it for me for now. Thank you for listening. I hope to have another report out soon, maybe even non-vaccine related. This is Heidi Robertson, signing off.
Save the date, Sunday, June the 11th, for Skeptical, the day-long Northern California Conference of Science and Skepticism, featuring Eugenie C. Scott, Science and Pseudoscience of Race, Brian Dunning, Challenging Popular Assumptions, Andrew Fracknoy, Pseudoscience, Advice for the 2017 Solar Eclipse, Edward Wasserman, Fake News, Judith Horstman, Myths of the Brain, Marty Klein, Pornography and Porn Panic, plus Science Comedy Magic with Luigi and Zavino. Register online at skepticalcon.org. Skeptical at the Shattuck Hotel, Alston Way, Berkeley, California, Sunday, June the 11th. And now, direct from the cafe at Australia's Science Channel, it's Brew Ha Ha with Ben Lewis.
A fresh email leak has just landed, and we are loving this particular peek behind the curtains of the CSIRO. Dial back the clock to the innocent days of 2015. New Horizons whiz past Pluto, audiences flocked to the theatres to watch Furious 7, and the world prepared for COP21, the International Climate Change Conference in Paris. According to these emails, when it came to making a submission to the government on greenhouse gas reduction targets, it was management versus scientists at the CSIRO. Basically, the scientists wanted to make one, and management didn't. Ultimately, the scientists made a separate submission, independent of the CSIRO. But hang on, scientists at the CSIRO, like most research and scientific institutions, are allowed, and in fact encouraged, to speak out in their areas of expertise. But as soon as the topic strays into policy, the scientists are expected to zip their lips as representatives of their institution. But hey, scientists, you can tell us everything. Next time you want to leak something, send it our way. We'll be wide eyes and open ears. From which scientist leaves dirty Petri dishes all over the lab benches, to who wasted millions of dollars in funding, we're here for you. You can tell us anything.
For more Brew Ha Ha and Australian science, head for www.australiascience.tv. Joining me now all the way from the Czech Republic, and what a beautiful country that is too. I've had the pleasure of visiting the Czech Republic twice over the last 20 years. A wonderful place. From the Czech Skeptics Club Sisyphus, it's Claire Klingenberg. Good morning and good evening, Claire.
Good morning and good evening to you.
I know it's late at night in the Czech Republic right now, and it's sort of early in the morning here in Australia. But that's the way the internet works when you're interviewing people around the planet. Now, we've given you a call. We've contacted you to remind us, fill us in on the upcoming European Skeptics Congress, which is going to be held in Poland. Now, you were on the Skeptic Zone some months ago in January when Iran Sagev interviewed you. How are things shaping up for the Congress, and what can you tell our listeners?
So, of course, everything is shaping up great. We are very, very excited about the Congress. It's a cooperation Congress between the Czech Republic and Poland and the Polish skeptics. The Congress itself will have traditional and less traditional skeptic topics, and what we are very happy about is the number of workshops that we have for the public, which are free for the public, which is kind of the main thing we skeptics should do is the public outreach. So I'm very, very happy that my Polish colleagues managed to secure so many wonderful speakers for the public as well, not just for us, for the skeptics.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about where the Congress is going to be held? I'm hoping it's pronounced something like Wrocław, is that right?
Yes. So the city of Wrocław in Poland, don't worry, it has an international airport with services from London and Berlin and like every other major European city. So it's not in the middle of nowhere. You can get there. So the city of Wrocław is a very beautiful, very historic city, has a wonderful university, and the University of Wrocław is also the venue of the Congress. For those who want to have like a little road trip, we have this kind of event in Prague, in Czech Republic, the day before the Congress starts, with a bus service to Wrocław, which is only 3 hours away. So that's kind of a fun thing to do, and we have people signing up to do that as well. But the city of Wrocław, it's interesting because it has 10 Nobel Prize winners connected with it. So that's quite a number.
That's not bad. And you know what, folks? As I speak to Claire, I'm just casting an eye over the website for the Congress, which is Skeptics.con. And skeptics can be spelt with a K or a C in this case. And the city looks just beautiful. I mean, gorgeous. And the facilities are fantastic. And it's in fact, I'm sort of getting swept away here, folks, because the website itself rotates images of this beautiful, beautiful place in Poland. Now, what can people expect, apart from the workshops? Who can people expect to see speak there, Claire?
Well, our main star of the whole event, of course, is James Randi, who is making his kind of European tour. After our Congress, he's going to stop in Italy for the CICAP Congress. But we are very, very happy that he has decided to come and speak at our Congress in Wrocław. He was speaking at the European Skeptics Congress a couple of years ago when it was in Sweden. And now he's going to be speaking in the one that's now in Poland. Wow,
that's fantastic, and what a man he is to be still so active at his wonderful age. That's just fantastic.
Yes, I was very lucky to have the opportunity to meet him at SciCon in October, and I'm very happy that he accepted my invitation to come and speak at this Congress. I think it will just bring it to a completely another level.
I'm sure it will.
But like the other speakers we have, kind of like at the Skeptics conferences, there are certain speakers that we tend to hear a lot. And so what we wanted to do is kind of mix it up a little bit. We wanted to give the people a different kind of take, a different kind of flavor. So we have speakers, Polish speakers and Czech speakers who usually are not featured, but who are at the top of their respective fields. Mm-hmm. And as well from other speakers from other countries. We have, for example, Susan Blackmore, and we have Scott Lilienfield and Mark Linus, so who are also very big stars in their own field.
And I noticed too, my friend and known to many people, Susan Gerbeck will be there too.
She's doing wonderful work on Wikipedia. There's like no one else who'd be so active, and really her work is shaping the public eye and the public opinion so much. She's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, she certainly is. She's a real trooper. And an old friend of mine, I see, Sanal Enamadaku is going to be there too. Yes.
Sanal Enamadaku, he has his kind of own conference going on next weekend in Helsinki. He started the Rationalist International Group as well. And we're very lucky that he agreed to speak at our European Congress.
Well, look, Claire, it's shaping up to be a fantastic event. It's one of the many skeptical events around the world I wish I could attend just to soak in all the atmosphere and the history and the culture of the region, and not to mention, of course, the wonderful speakers and workshops that you're going to have there. Folks, it's the 17th European Skeptics Congress, and those dates again are September the 22nd to the 24th. The website is Skeptics.con. And skeptics can be spelt with a K or a C in this case. Links are to all of that on this week's show notes. Well, Claire, wonderful to catch up with you. I'll certainly be promoting this Congress in the coming months. And I think I'm going to be very lucky to meet you in person a bit later on in a few months in New York.
Yes, I look forward to that too. It will be my first Nexus conference.
Mine too. But for now, Claire Klingenberg, all the way from the beautiful Czech Republic, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now a special note for fans of Maynard at maynard.com.au. You can download your free Maynard calendar. Download, print out, whack on the wall. Spend 2017 with Maynard. For your free calendar, no strings attached. Well, you'll have to attach some strings to put it on the wall, or head for www.maynard.com.au.
Now it's time for Dr. Rachie Reports with Dr. Rachael Dunlop.
All right, the Australian Skeptics joining us once again in the studio, and always a delight to have them on board because we touch on some very interesting topics, don't we? Dr. Rachel Wilson. Why have I called you Dr. Rachel Wilson? Dr. Rachael Dunlop with us, and Dr. Krissy Wilson.
G'day, Glenn. How are you?
Psychologist extraordinaire. Hello, Krissy. Nice to have you along.
Oh, yeah. Good
yeah,
to
well,
be here.
thanks, Rach. Very well.
Happy Earth Hour to you, Glenn.
Yeah.
Did you turn the lights off in here?
We did.
You did? Yeah.
We did, and we fumbled around in the dark.
Good.
Made a lot of mistakes, but...
pressed the wrong buttons, I guess.
I guess I'm sceptical that it really achieves anything, really.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that, haven't they? I did hear some people saying that even the process of turning all those lights off and then back on can actually use more power. Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but some people have been questioning the value of that, yeah.
Something that certainly came to my attention a few weeks ago, and I know that it's come to your attention because in the current issue of your Skeptics magazine, The Skeptic,
yes,
which I get a copy of, and would thoroughly recommend anyone that's interested in reading about all this sort of stuff get a copy of, because it makes for some very good reading.
It's really good reading, yeah. Very, very interesting stuff.
Everything from UFOs to whether God, Jesus was gay. That was an interesting article. I mean, I dare not share that article with our listeners tonight. I think we'll break them into that story very gently. But the reasoning behind it was quite fascinating. Yes, yeah. That's in the forum section, isn't it? Yeah. A very long discussion about whether Jesus was gay. Yeah, and the reasons why. But you know, in plotting through all of the reasons that this particular writer wrote in about, it made me stop and think. I was reading it on the plane and I thought, well, okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah. You know, there were some interesting aspects to all of that. But the thing that I particularly want to talk about tonight, and we've got a couple of things on the agenda, the guy that runs the gym that I go to. Oh, yes. Who was a very knowledgeable young bloke, and he's terrific at nutrition and health and keeping us in shape and all that sort of caper. He turned up the other day with one of these power wristbands, and he said, you've got to get one of these. And I said, stop right there. Stop in the name of love, as the Supremes would have said. Stop in the name of scepticism, Glenn. He said, no, let me show you. And I said, you don't need to. You're going to show me how, if I wear it, you're going to tip me over without it, and then when I put it on, you're going to show me how it works. I said, you're about 30 years too late. I've seen this already, at least 30 years ago. Yeah. I said, now let me guess. I bet it's $60. That's right.
You're psychic,
it is.
Glenn. You're
I'm
clearly psychic.
How did I know this?
How did you know this? Have you read the article in the Australian Skeptic?
Well, no, you know what? I hadn't read your article. Right. But I had already been approached by another very good friend of mine who is a businessman, a very smart businessman. But he also was wearing one. And I said, what are you wearing that for? And he said, because it's improved my golf swing no end. Yeah. I said, is that right? Yeah. Like, why isn't the whole world wearing one? Tell us what's behind all of this. Well, it's called Power Balance, the ones that you're talking about, Glenn. And it was advertised on Today Tonight about a few months back, actually, where they did a story showing that it can increase your flexibility and your balance, apparently. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it is $60. And what it is it's a piece of sort of rubber, like those sort of charity bracelets you buy now, you know, those sort of things, but it's embedded with a hologram. Now, this hologram is supposed to align your energies and then allow you to become better at golf or better at swimming. So actually a lot of athletes tend to wear them, and that's how they are promoted by Power Balance, is that, you know, so-and-so who won the world record in the Olympic Games wore one, so they must work. So they actually promote it at that level, do they? Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. They have a lot of presence on Facebook where they have a lot of pushing of that. Top athletes wear them. Yeah. But my question is, how do they support the theory that this hologram, to me, is just an absolute crock? Well, Richard Saunders, who's usually here, he's not in tonight, but he in fact did a follow-up story on Today Tonight where he rang up the producers and he said, look, what you've just shown is complete nonsense, as you're saying. And he went over to Adelaide to do a test, and he did 5 tests where he used... It also comes as sort of like a business card as well. You don't have to have it as a bracelet. So he took the actual Power Balance card, and then he took a business card. And he went over to do this with Tom O'Dowd, who is the fellow who has the Australian rights to sell this thing. That's right, yeah. He's the man that distributes it in Australia. So he put Tom O'Dowd to the test with just a normal business card or a Power Balance card. And when that test was blinded, which means that neither the participants or Tom knew who had the Power Balance card, it failed every single time. Yeah, there were 6. My recall of the story was that there were 6 candidates selected. That's right, yes. And on each occasion, the test failed. Yes. And on each occasion, Richard said to Tom O'Dowd, are you happy with this person you've selected? That's right. And he said yes. He did. He did say yes. He said yes before, and then he said yes after. But it's... The way that it works is it's a process called applied kinesiology, and this is where, if listeners have seen the segment, but what happens is if you say, for example, extend your arm out to your side completely, and then you wear the bracelet, the person who's testing you will push on your arm, and without the bracelet they'll be able to push you over, but with the bracelet you should be able to be stronger. Now, it's really quite simple the way it's done, and in fact Richard and I do a show for children called Mystery Investigators, and we've just started using it in our show, and it's really about physics in a sense, and the centre of your balance. So it's a very, very subtle effect, but if you just slightly change the position of the way you put your weight onto somebody, you can actually push them over. Or if you don't, they can maintain strength, and then you can say, well, it's the bracelet that did it. But Krissy, I think, knows a little bit about that too, don't you, Krissy?
Yeah, I mean, the problem here is that if you have this experience of this thing working or seeming to work, then that's going to have a very a powerful impact on you, and you'll go away believing that this thing does work.
So, Krissy, dare I say, placebo effect?
Oh, absolutely, but not just a placebo effect. I mean, you get this sort of stuff at psychic fairs and mind, body, spirit festival type things where people go along and they already go along armed with the idea or the belief that this stuff works, or the desire to be convinced that it works. So you're already halfway there to believing. So they go along, they have this demonstration and it seems to work, and they're convinced. So really, it doesn't take very much evidence to convince someone that this sort of stuff works, because they want to believe, and that's very, very powerful for a lot of people.
And also, Glenn, you know, with Power Balance, for example, their testimonials are coming from people that are very successful and high-powered, like, famous swimmers or famous sports people. So that is very convincing to people too. If you hear that, say, someone who is very well respected is wearing it and says it works, well, that's going to help convince you. And they also do some pretty tricky stuff here with science words. So you notice I mentioned there's a hologram embedded in this bracelet. Well, they talk about energies and aligning energies and influencing energies.
I read that on the pack that it comes with, and I read that out and I laughed.
Well, I'm a scientist, as you know, and that doesn't make any sense to me scientifically. But if you don't understand science, it can sound sciencey, if you like, and that sort of lends it legitimacy.
Well, it's very seductive. I mean, any kind of pseudo-scientific claptrap is going to seduce people into believing that there's some kind of credibility behind it.
But it's like, we know with the TGA that they have to, if you're saying that a medicine, for example, is going to do something, or if some special mix is going to do something, then it has to be proven that it can do something. Why is it that this particular product, the Power Balance wristband, and I quote here from the website, which is in your magazine, it says, how does it work? Most everything has a frequency. This is what you're referring to, Rach?
Yeah.
How does it work? Most everything has a frequency inherent to it. Some frequencies react positively with your body and others negatively. When the hologram comes into contact with your body's energy field, it allows your body to interact with the natural, beneficial frequency stored within the hologram. This results in improved energy flow throughout your body. Stop.
That's just gobbledygook, isn't it?
I mean, I was losing the will to live just listening to it, sorry.
But, look, we like to think of it as this, Glenn. We like to think of taking scientific words and putting them into a hat and then pulling them out at random and just putting them on the page, because that's what that sounds like to me as a scientist. It makes no sense at all.
But look, people want to believe in this stuff. They want to believe that little granite pendants will make them sexier and better looking and all the rest of it, and little armbands will enhance their prowess and blah, blah, blah. But, it's inherent in man to believe in these sort of things.
And it's when it comes down to $60 a pop that you have to wonder about the ethics of someone selling it when they know it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, but, buyer beware, I suppose. And as I said to my mate at the gym, he was still convinced that it was... He said, but look, I've just tested it on... And he did a couple of people in the gym, just random type stuff. And, yes, they were a bit wobbly at first, and then they weren't so wobbly. And exactly as you just said, Krissy, I said, but hang on, there's a psyche thing going on here. There's people... wanting to believe that it's actually doing something for them, or they're resisting more the second time round, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's just down to suggestion. You should never underestimate the power of suggestion.
No one's been able to prove there's any sort of science behind it, and of course there's no science behind it.
No,
and
there isn't.
And if there was, they'd be happy to take up the Skeptics challenge of $100,000, wouldn't they?
You can come to us and we will test you using a scientific test, and if you can prove that it works, we give you $100,000.
Yep.
And I should mention, Glenn, we also have a $20,000 spotters fee. So if anyone out there knows of someone who might want to sit our test and they can get them to come and participate, they can get $20,000 too.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so there we are. If there's something that's that you think is worthwhile checking out, then you could get the spotters fee of $20,000, and if indeed you've got something like the power wrist balance thing or whatever, and you want to prove the Skeptics wrong, you could pocket $100,000. What else have we got? What about the UFO that apparently I was away this week, but there was
were you?
UFO scene here in Sydney?
There was, Glenn. Last week there was a UFO. In fact, there was photographic evidence of a UFO in Chipping Norton. It was taken by a lady at sunset, and she aimed her iPhone towards the sunset, and then when she looked at the photo, she saw this blurry black spot in the middle of the sunset. And she said that sort of moved into the centre of the image and then it moved away very quickly and silently, which often UFOs do, and she was certain that it was an unidentified flying object of possibly alien description. Right. We just had a look at the photos before, Krissy, and what was your impression of the image?
Well, if the perspective is correct, this thing should have been huge. I mean, you should just about have been able to see the little green men in the front of the cockpit. I mean, it should have been huge. I mean, it could have been anything. To me, it looks like it might well have been a weather balloon, something like that. But apparently she was the only person who saw it. I mean, I don't know how big Chipping Norton is, but presumably if there was this enormous spaceship floating around Chipping Norton, you'd think someone else might just have spotted it.
Well, if anyone has seen that television show called V, in the very first episode they show these huge ships that fly over and sort of sit on the top of the major cities. And from the photo that we saw in the newspaper, it looked like it would be that size, like to cover maybe the most of the CBD. So I'm surprised too, Krissy, that only one person reported it and saw it. So, but did you know, Glenn, that there is a UFO research sort of reporting agency in New South Wales?
No.
Yeah.
Don't tell me it's government funded as well. I'll be horrified.
I don't know. But they say that they get between 1,000 and 1,500 reports of sightings in Australia every year of UFOs.
But once again, I suppose it's all subjective, isn't it? There are people out there that probably want to see UFOs.
Well, UFO simply means unidentified flying object. It could be something that you just can't identify what it is. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's an alien spaceship up there. It could be anything.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It could be reflections of light, spots on the wind. I think it was a spot on the windscreen in this particular case.
In the news article they said skeptics are going to say that it's a speck of dust either on the windscreen or on the camera, and I'm tending towards that myself.
See, a lot of this stuff can be beaten up into a story, though. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then people can choose to
It's
believe
exciting. People want to believe it.
That's exactly right. I mean, one of the reasons why I like having you guys on here is because it just throws that element of, question stuff, folks. Question it. Don't take it as read all the time. And that just goes not just for what these sorts of things are we're talking about. That goes for everything. That goes for news articles, for goodness sake.
Oh, yes.
I mean, media have, and we work in the media, have agendas sometimes that they want to push. Stephanie, I might say, is on email. Stephanie from Camden just sent an email, and I think maybe has misinterpreted what we just discussed in relation to the wrist bracelet. Stephanie says, what a load of something. I've seen this done in person with this product and with a titanium product. I am a scientist. It is BS, she says. People believe what they want to believe. Oh, yeah, I've also seen 5 out of 10 people come off balance with the product. These girls are not talking science, they're talking hologram bracelet gimmick. Talk people into believing, girls. I never will. I know the trick behind making people stay balanced and unbalanced, blah, blah, blah. Utter crap for $60. No, I think, Stephanie, you might have misunderstood. We're not promoting it.
No. No. We're poo-pooing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's rubbish.
Absolutely.
Don't bother. Read a book. Sit at home and read a book.
Get a rubber band and put that around your wrist. It's the same and it won't cost you as much.
So we're all on the same page, Stephanie, so we're all in this together. Listen, we're going to run out of time. What about was there an incident in Northern Territory raining fish or something?
There's an isolated Aboriginal community called Larger Manhu, which is about 800 k's south of Darwin, or 1,200 north of Adelaide, so right in the middle of nowhere. Last week they reported fish falling from the sky, and there were photographs again of these fish, and apparently it happens there about every decade. Right. So recently there's been extensive rains in that area, and I spoke to a guy who actually lives in that area a couple of days ago, and his theory was not that they actually rained from the sky, from the heavens, or was some sort of, supernatural sort of event. His theory was that there's things called whirly-whirlies that most of us would be familiar with that might have picked up some of these flooding water that could have had some fish in it,
so
and dumped
spirals it up, takes it all up, and then drops it down again.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's been known to happen. They don't travel very far, so it couldn't have come from the coast, but it might have come from some recent flooding. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But definitely not fish just falling out of the sky.
Yeah, well, there's no video of that either, Glenn, because this area is... Well, actually, it's an Aboriginal settlement. There's not much technology, apparently. There's spotty mobile coverage and stuff too, but there's no evidence.
But once again, to use Krissy's line, that makes for a good story, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
Much more fun than some boring story about it not happening. Why not? God, wouldn't it be great if it rained fish every day?
I mean, it just depends what you want to believe, really. Twitter, I see you recently won yourself an award for being a mad Twitterer.
I did. I won a Shorty Award, which is sort of like the Twitter Oscars, Glenn, in New York City.
Wow.
And I won for the health category. So that was for being the most interesting person in the health category for the last 12 months. Now, I wanted to have a word with you. I'm following you on Twitter. You never tweet.
No, you keep following me, baby, along with the other however many hundreds or thousands are following me. I get updates every day from people following me on Twitter, and I keep looking behind me to see where are these people that are following me.
Right. Yeah, because I think you put out one tweet saying I've now joined Twitter, and then that's about it. Have you tweeted at all?
I had to write an article for Virgin Blue's in-flight magazine, Voyeur, about they wanted me to Twitter, and that was the experience that I had to have, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm tweeted out.
Really?
You don't want to know about what goes on in my life, Rachel, truly.
Well,
right?
I don't know. I'm following you. I want to know. I'm going to unfollow you now.
Yeah.
You realise that, don't you?
You're wasting your time. I'm telling you now, save yourself the breath. Girls, thank you for coming in. Thank you for clearing up another few, or throwing some light, should I say, on a few more little interesting facts or, shall I say, fictions of life.
Yes, you're welcome. Anytime. And please, for more information, go to www.skeptics.com.au.
G'day, this is Dr. Carl Krissy, proud to be a skeptic, and you can find out more about me at drcarl.com and get lots of free stuff there as well.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, in this week's show notes, I'll add a link to my latest appearance on Sydney radio just the other night. And in fact, that went all over Australia. That's syndicated, which is fun. And I talked to host Mike Williams about cold reading. A 15-minute chat to Mike Williams about the psychic tricks of cold reading. And I'll just add a link there in the show notes. If you click on that, you go straight to the archive page. If you weren't listening, if you didn't happen to listen at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., I'm not sure when it was very early, you can catch up on that appearance. A big thank you to the Raw Skeptic Heidi Robertson for her very thought-provoking report this week. Nice one, Heidi. You make an excellent point. Coming up on the next Skeptic Zone, I don't know, I might chat to somebody up in Queensland on the Gold Coast. To do with the Gold Coast Skeptics. This is interesting. The Gold Coast Skeptics, of course, have been going for a very long time. There's been a bit of a handing over the baton up there, so we might catch up with the Gold Coast and see what's going on. The Gold Coast, for those of you who don't know, is a what would you call it? A tourist mecca. Gold and beaches and sand and dolphins and that sort of thing. Famous for parties and vacations. But for this week, with my fidget spinner on the desk here, let me go. Here we go. Well, that's got the attention of Henrietta now. Are you going to do something about that? She's just looking at it. While Henrietta looks at the fidget spinner, this is Richard Saunders. That's enough of that. Signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.